Hello, happy Friday, Sratan Patak. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, I answer 5 questions from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, expatinCroatia.com, email my consulting sessions, Cam's consulting sessions, and people who mime them to me through a game of charades, which is not a very effective way because I'm not good at social cues and I'm very bad at charades. There are lots of other more effective methods. Thank you so much for being here. I've got 5 great questions for you today. I was really hoping I was going to be outside today. I had a birthday party in Park Svonšac today for my friend Madge, and we got rained out. Hence all the curly hair. So yeah, it was sad that we got rained out. But yeah, I know summer's coming and soon I'll be able to go back outside again. But yeah, it's been kind of crazy weather this week in Split. How are you? How are you doing? Okay, I have to ask you a question. So today I have a mic on, and I don't usually have a mic on because I've had this 3-year struggle with mics that I've not been able to get to work. So does it work okay? Can you hear me fine? If there's a problem, please tell me, and then I will take this thing off and throw it out the window because, quite frankly, that's what I would like to do anyways. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dive in. All right, so let me pull up the questions. This first one comes from Mike on the 5 Question Friday forum. I am English and my wife is a Croatian citizen. Our primary residence is in the UK, but my wife owns an apartment in Croatia. We are planning a visit for 3 months this summer, but may extend for a few weeks once we get there. How do we do this with regards to notifying MUP? Well, that's not how it works. You can't just extend a tourist visa past the 90 days. They only allow you to do that in extenuating circumstances, usually regarding health. Now, I don't want to say this is an across-the-board situation because Croatia is not an across-the-board place. There's a lot of gray area in Croatia and discretion. So ultimately, Mike, or you, if you're in this situation, you can go to your local MUP station and say, hey, I'm here for 90 days, but I would like to stay a little bit longer. Is that going to be possible? And most likely they're going to tell you no, so be prepared for that. But you just never know. I think especially in these smaller MUP stations, maybe you have a better chance. But ultimately, it's not like they just say, yes, you can, and then you just go away. Because when you leave the border, whether it's you leave the Croatian border, but now that Croatia's in Schengen, you could be leaving the Schengen area not in Croatia. You could be leaving it someplace else. Like, for example, they said they're from the UK. So maybe they're driving, in which case they would not be exiting the Schengen zone in Croatia. They might be exiting the Schengen zone in France or the Netherlands. France or the Netherlands might be like, hey, why have you overstayed? Because if you are staying past that 90 days, you have to have some kind of piece of paper to back that up. Because if you are caught overstaying your stay in the Schengen zone, it usually results in a 1-year ban and a fine. So I would not chance it. I would go and ask for permission before you do it and just be comfortable with the fact that they may say no to that. So his wife's Croatian. She can stay here as long as she wants. But Mike, who's a UK citizen, cannot. He cannot be here past 90 days without applying for residence. And that is just kind of a hefty process for just a handful of weeks. So in this case, probably best that he leave before the end of the 90 days is up. Thank you so much for that question. Okay. Next question comes from Mary. I'm from the Philippines. I just gave birth here in Zagreb last March, but I didn't yet receive any allowance for my son. Congratulations. I worked 7 months in my first job and 5 months in my second job, but the problem is my second job, because I got my work permit in October and had maternity leave last November, will I still be able to get an allowance from HZZO? So I just want to boil this down for you real simply, and then I'm going to explain it. So first, there are child allowances here in Croatia. There's a child allowance that you can get from the state. There's also child allowances that you can get from the municipality. So like Split, for example, offers a stipend to new parents. Okay. So the Child Benefit Act sets out the following eligibility questions. All right. I'm going to start over, guys. Whew. End of the week, my brain is scrambled. I'm going to try this one more time. The Child Benefits Act sets out who can get benefits. Let's just say it that way, okay? The applicant must be of Croatian citizenship or have the status of a foreigner with approved permanent residence, and the applicant has resided in the Republic of Croatia for at least 3 years before applying. So that is the most common situation. The applicant has status of asylum seeker or a foreigner under subsidiary protection or a member of their family according to the regulations on asylum. The total income earned in the previous calendar year per household member does not exceed 70% of the state budget base per month. The applicant lives in a household with the child, and the applicant is supporting the child. So I want to scroll back up to the first thing I said because that's the most common scenario. You have to be a Croatian citizen who has lived here for at least 3 years, or you have to be a foreigner that has a permanent residence or long-term residence. Those two things are the same. But permanent residence applies to spouses of Croatian citizens, and long-term residence applies to everybody else. So if in this situation, Mary is not a permanent resident or a long-term resident, then she would not qualify to get that child allowance. Now, I want to just clarify, point out one thing is where they're specific about if you're a Croatian citizen, you have to be living in Croatia for at least 3 years with a permanent address. That's because just because you're a Croatian citizen does not mean that you can just move here and automatically get benefits from the system. They want you to be living here for at least 3 years to be able to get access to those benefits. Okay, we have, there's one exception. The child with a higher rate of or severe disability and the child of a deceased or missing Croatia war veteran can also get child benefits. We do have a guide on this. Actually, we just promoted it recently. So if you missed that, then send us a DM and we'll be happy to send it over to you. So it talks about child benefits, but it also talks about maternity leave and paternity leave and all the rules that are governing that. Okay. Thank you so much, Mary. The next question comes from Leanne here on Instagram. What constitutes a long-term rental? So in the context of this question, my guess is she was trying to understand what the difference is between a long-term rental and a short-term rental. So long-term rental is usually like you are renting an apartment, you are living there. Short-term rental is like an accommodation. So I want to kind of dig into that a little bit deeper to explain a bit of the nuance. So when we're talking about short-term rental in Croatian, okay, I'm going to speak Croatian now, and I have not said these words out loud, so I'm sure it's going to be humorous for you, which is why I'm saying it. Kratkotrajni smještaj. That literally means short-term accommodation. So that's based on a nightly rate, which would make sense. Police registration for this type of accommodation is done through a system called e-visitor. It is the obligation of the owner of the accommodation to register your presence in that accommodation. Okay. Now, also in terms of taxes, so taxes are charged for accommodation in a very specific way. You have to register as an accommodation in advance. You can't just put your property up on Airbnb and be done with it. I mean, you could, but it would not be legal. So that's also important to keep in mind. Dugotrajni smještaj. Oh, that's a wonderful word. Means long-term accommodation. Okay, so this usually involves a rental contract. The police registration is done by the tenant with a notarized rental contract directly with the police. Okay, so the onus is on you to register yourself. In terms of income tax, it is charged in a different way. Whenever you have your rental contract notarized, it is sent to the tax office and they will administer the tax. Now, in terms of what that tax rate is, there are a few different ways that you can be taxed, depending on how you would like to do it. That's kind of one interesting thing about the Croatian tax system is when it comes to business taxes, in certain scenarios, you can actually choose how you would like to be taxed. So that way you can find the system that works best for you. So it really just depends. Like if you have a business, then you're most likely going to be paying like a profit tax, but you could also pay an income tax. So those tax rates vary. Okay, they can vary as low as like 12% and they go as high as 36%. All right. Let's see if anything like this. So if you are applying for residence, you can use a short-term accommodation for the purposes of applying, but once you are approved, you have to have a long-term residence. So you can't just book a year on Airbnb and be done with it. That will not work. That's not allowed. So we have a couple of guides here. We have one on how to let out a short-term accommodation, and then we also have a guide for landlords who want to rent out their property to a long-term tenant. So if you would like either of those, send us a DM. Okay, next we are here for our lawyer tip of the week. I thought that was going to make a noise. I was in Teddy getting a tiara for my friend's birthday, and I was like, I want something that's going to make a noise for the lawyer tip of the week, and I really thought this was going to make a noise, and it didn't make any noises at all. Well, I guess kind of. That's lame. All right, I'm going to work on that. All right, here is your lawyer tip of the week. This is for people applying for citizenship, no matter what your basis is. When writing your biography for your citizenship application, be genuine and authentic. Don't write anything just because you think that's what the caseworker wants to hear. Don't lie. And don't say that you want to get citizenship in Croatia so that you can live in a different country in Europe that is not Croatia. So that may seem like common sense, but you would be surprised. There was actually someone who mentioned their love of prosciutto as a reason for applying for citizenship. No. What you have to keep in mind is there's not many of them, first of all. There's not a whole lot of caseworkers that are processing these citizenship applications, and they are processing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of citizenship applications. So they can smell BS from a mile away. That's why you need to be authentic and genuine. Whenever I have a consulting call with someone about citizenship, I always ask them, why do you want Croatian citizenship and what do you plan to do with it? Because that's a question, or those two questions you should answer in your citizenship biography. So that's really important. You can omit, but do not lie. Don't lie. You never know. You might get caught in that, okay? And I also wanted to mention that when we do have our consulting sessions, what we do is an output from that is we always provide a checklist of all of the items that should be covered in that biography. So that way you don't miss anything. At some point, I'm going to share my biography that I wrote for my citizenship application, but I want to wait until it's approved because I'm hoping that it will be approved sometime before I go gray. Okay, so our next question comes from Maria on the 5-Question Friday forum. We live in the United States, but my children have dual citizenship through their father. If my children want to stay with their baka in Croatia for longer than 90 days, would they have to travel to or from the U.S. on their Croatian passports? Yes. Absolutely yes. So if you are a dual citizen with Croatia, then you should always, and you're coming to Croatia, you should always travel on your Croatian passport, like from the get-go, like from when you leave your home country. Because this is the biggest reason why. So, one, just because you're a Croatian citizen does not mean that you're going to be treated like a Croatian citizen if you enter Croatia on a different passport. So, like if you enter as a U.S. citizen, but you hold Croatian citizenship, how's Croatia going to know that? They're going to apply whatever rules to you based on your citizenship of the passport in which you enter the country from. And that was kind of a clunky sentence, but you get my point. So if you enter on a third country national passport, they're going to apply third country rules. So if you would like the Croatian EU rules applied to you, which are better, then you want to enter on that passport. And she asked some more questions and I didn't include it because I didn't want to make it confusing, but I do think it's an important point to make. She was like, well, what if we fly to Germany on the US passport and then we change the Croatian passport? It's like, yeah, but you just entered the EU on a third country passport. So when they log you coming into Germany, that's what they're going to see is the third country passport. So that means the Schengen rules and the EU rules and the German rules are all being applied under that third country list of requirements. So there's no benefit to doing that. If you're coming to the EU, travel here on an EU passport if you have it, like from the get-go, period. And even more so, next year they're going to be implementing this ETIAS system, which I'm just going to quickly run that down in case you haven't already seen all the times that we've talked about it. But the ETIAS system is going to be kind of like, it's not a visa system. It's it's like a pre-check. Let's call it that way. It's a bit of like a travel registration that anyone who's a third country national traveling to Europe is going to have to do prior to travel. So you're going to have to go online, fill out a form about, who you are, why you're here, your criminal background, and then most likely you'll be approved within 2 to 3 days. You have to spend like €7. It's cheap. And then you have to do that before you get on the plane from wherever it is you're coming from to come to Europe. So if you are a Croatian citizen, you don't have to do that. So that's another reason why if you have Croatian citizenship as well as some other citizenship, always travel to Croatia the full trip on your Croatian passport. Then you don't have any limitations on your tourist stay. Okay. All righty. Next question. Yes, this is our last question. It's a quick one today, guys. All right. This comes from John through email. Recently, I got my Croatian permanent resident status. I am still a UK citizen. Can I buy Croatian farmland now? No. So when you buy property in Croatia, it is always based on your citizenship. It is not based on your resident status. It doesn't mean that when you buy property in Croatia, you're not actually providing your residence card. You are, but that is not the deciding factor. It's all based on your citizenship. So even though he's a permanent resident, he is still a third country national because he is a UK citizen and they are third country nationals now, like us. So no, he would not be able to buy any kind of agricultural land. The only people who can buy agricultural land in Croatia right now are Croatian citizens and EU EEA citizens. Now, that being said, you can also buy agricultural land as a third country national through a Croatian company because a Croatian company is considered a Croatian citizen under the law. So that's how it goes. Now, I do want to reiterate that the ability to buy property in Croatia is based off reciprocity. So we're not talking about farmland. We're just talking about property in general. So it's important for you to check to see if your country has a reciprocity agreement in place with Croatia before you kind of go down the road of buying property in Croatia. We do have a guide that's specifically about reciprocity. So if you would like to see that, send us a DM. We also have a ton of guides on buying property. We have one for Croatian citizens and EU citizens. We have one for third country nationals. And we have a post on things to know before you buy property. And we might actually have a few others about property records and stuff like that. So we're happy to send over whatever it is that you need. Did I cover everything that I wanted to? Yes, I think I hit all the points. So that's it, guys. That was a really quick one today. But I know last week, a few of you asked me some really heavy-duty questions, and so we had a super long episode. But I know you're all eager to have your beautiful weekend, so I'm going to let you go. But I will be back here next Friday, and hopefully outside. That would be super lovely. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy these times with you guys on Fridays. I hope you have a beautifully sunny weekend wherever you are. And vidimo se. Ciao. Bye, bye, bye.